I call that the green mile, which is the point walking from the room I was in to the front desk, because a lot of death occurs in the green mile. So they walk up, and by then they're saying to themselves, I really can't come tomorrow. But what they're actually saying to the staff is this really that important? Is it as serious as Dr. Ben said it was? So if the staff waffles or wavers or lets the fence come toppling down even 1%, they've ruined everything I just did. So my staff knows, hold up the fence when they test the fence. Hey, and welcome to the CCC C3 webinar. This one's really a training. What we want to talk about is what I would call day 2 or part 2. So when we talk through conversion, often we think of people come to day 1 and get their exam, day 2 get a mini report with an adjustment, and day 3 there's a doctor's report. Some people do that in group, some individually. Many years ago, I shifted to a 2-day process. But in doing a 2-day process, there's still 3 parts. So no matter what anybody would say relative to their methodology for conversion, if they say there's less than 3 parts, then they're wrong. So I always say I'm somewhat agnostic as to how your conversion works as long as it's working. But one thing that's absolutely true is it's unassailable, it's inviolable, is that you have 3 parts. Which is 1, you've got to do an exam. 2, you have to present what you found so that they're willing to come to. 3, a report with their spouse to hear the results and get their care plan. So that all 3 parts are critical to healthy conversion, consistent conversion, to the kind of plan we're talking about. Because when we say conversion, converting them to what? So just because they start, actually had a client here recently said, well, my associate gets a yes, but it's not a commitment. And I really liked that point because it's true. That are we really converting, or are they just starting some care? When I first began chiropractic, we had really good insurance back then. This is in the prehistoric days. We had dinosaurs walking by my clinic. And so you would get a yes out of everybody, but nobody was committed. And so as insurance got worse, and I didn't like practicing when I had all these uncommitted patients who really didn't understand chiropractic and were not bringing in their families and committed to doing this for life, I realized I had to do a much better job. And that's where we learned about these 3 parts. So today I want to talk about part 2, starting with, though, what are the results we need from all 3 parts? So first of all, when they walk in for the exam, generally there's a lot of issues there that if you're not aware of them can really hurt you. So issue number 1 is their reason for being there and relevance to how chiropractic can help with that reason. So generally there's some sort of pain of some kind, and I'm looking at chiropractic as a way to just kind of pop me or crack me or rub me. Every day I was just working with one of my locations, and there was a guy that came through that is the repairman for the actual office space. And he goes, oh, you're a chiropractor. My shoulder hurts. Maybe I'll see you and you can kind of pop it around and it'll feel better. So that's your pretty typical your day 1, something of that nature. So I've got to convert them, truly convert them into something that's not just a yes, but a commitment to the principle of chiropractic, what we're doing long-term, starting with part 1. So I got to take them from, I think it's a simple problem, to understanding it's a subluxation, a very dangerous problem. So the result of day 1 has to be a level of anxiety and urgency around finding out what those x-rays show and then learning just how bad this has gotten. So I need that urgency and anxiety out of day 1, or I didn't get that very important product as a result of my process and communication. Now we've got part 2. So part 2 is I'm now going to tell them what I found. So that's what part 2 is. However this works in your office, there's still a part 2. I'm going to tell them what I found, not show them. I'm going to tell them. And it's got to be told well enough so that there's now a commitment to seeing when they come back for the report, what's wrong and what I'm going to do about it. So the result of part 2 is that, what am I going to do about this? I now know it's serious. What am I going to do about it? Then as we go to part 3, which is the actual report, spouse is sitting there. We go over the x-rays, exam findings, and the care plan. In part 3, the result of that is just, here's my credit card. That's the result. I don't even care what it costs. When I've gone to, like, for example, I've got a really good naturopath, and when I've gone there and he's done blood work, he said, okay, here's my plan for you, and it's going to cost. I'm like, what do you mean here's what it's going to cost? If I need to do it, what does it matter what it costs? Here's the credit card. And that's how I'm looking to present day 3, and it's really the amalgamation. It's the ultimate summation, this gestalt moment where it's all come together on day 3 that makes day 3 work, where they're just saying, well, here's the credit card. Of course, I've got to do it. What's the difference? How much it costs? It all has to come together. A lot of people will blame the report for why somebody doesn't want to pay and do it, but it starts, got to get the result from part 1, the result from part 2, and the result from part 3 to get the commitment that we're looking for. And as we say, credit card, just what's the difference? Here's the credit card. I've obviously got to do something. So we're going to focus on part 2. So for part 2, I do part 2 on day 1. So I don't do part 2 on day 2, because day 2 is the IDR, the individual doctor's report in our system. So we do the exam. And again, I'm not going to get into the exam part, but we've got to ramp up this urgency and anxiety so that they want to know what they urgently and anxiously want to know what we found. So if you really did a good job, they're saying to you, when do I get to find out? I mean, you've got me really concerned about what's going to be on that x-ray. So what I'll say at the end of part 1, the exam, I'll say, listen, if you have a few minutes, I'm really worried about this. Normally this is a 3-day process, but I'm going to do it in 2 days because you need help now. So just go have a seat in the waiting room. I'm going to go evaluate the x-rays and do my analysis. Then I'm going to come back and bring you back and let you know what we found. So go have a seat. And then usually I'll go and I'll clear some adjustments out, and then I'll go check the x-ray, spend a moment on it, have the staff send them back into one of the adjusting rooms and say to them, my part 2. So we go through the whole part 2 script, and I'll do a first adjustment right there, as we've done in the past, as a day 2. We'll go through our whole day 2 process right there. It avoids also some of those people that get upset they didn't get anything done the first day, but also avoids this idea that I'm just cracking your back and treating your pain, because I've done my report. I've done my part 2 report. And I'll tell them in the part 2 report, I'll say that, wow, I know you thought, like the guy with the shoulder I talked to yesterday, I know you thought you had just a kind of a simple musculoskeletal type problem. And I hoped it was that also, just something simple, but it wasn't. And the whole idea here is, it's like I've got a 500-pound barbell on my back, and I've been sitting up all night brooding over a cup of coffee, because I've got to tell this patient this bad news, that this wasn't just, you didn't just strain your neck when you slept last night. There's 15 years of decay. The disc is damaged. The vertebrae have osteophytes. We've got degenerative arthritis. The nerves have been compressed. The cord is being damaged. And where do those nerves go? That's right, Mrs. Jones. Those go to your heart. So we've got what looks to be 15, 20, 25 years of damage to your spine and nervous system. So how has that heart been functioning? Yeah, not very well. It has not functioned very well the last many years. So if you left it there, what will your heart be doing in 3 months? Yeah, that's right. It would be worse. If you left this here another 6 months, where would you be? Yeah, maybe at a cardiologist complaining of a problem. Exactly. If you didn't do something about this and you let this continue to degenerate for another year, what's going to happen to your spine by then? Yeah, further damage. What about the nerves? Further decay. So where's your heart going to be in a year? And if they've got other problems, they'll say, you're already on 2 medications. You've been hurting. This has been going on 25 years. Where are you going to be in a year? And if I do it right, they usually say dead, heart attack, I won't be here in a year. And I let them know, listen, I'm not going to let that happen to you. That's why I'm here. So your next visit tomorrow, I'm going to go over these x-rays so you can see them. I'll put a plan together for what care you need here, what you need to do at home, how much it's going to cost, how often you'll come in. And it's critical that your spouse comes with you. They're going to want to see this, and they need to know what we're doing, what you're doing here and at home. And at that point, see this is really critical because it's nothing you can tell them. It's something they need to see. So if that's done well, then generally you don't get objections because you've just let them know there's cancer, there's heart disease, there's something serious going on that has needed attention for a very long time. In my mind, cancer has been metastasizing. Arteries have been clogging, that we are on death's door and need to get you on top of this right away. So that's I'm not saying that, that's my emotion, that's my headspace. So I don't get the objections a lot of other doctors get because that's where I'm coming from. And so they are ready to come back tomorrow with their spouse. Now, all of us get some objections. So it's not like I never get an objection. So I want to walk through some of the objections as well as some of the tricks to getting people back with their spouse when sometimes there's just issues. Sometimes the spouse can't come or works out of town or is out of the country. They're in the military. And there's all kinds of things that we'll run into and what we do in that case. So as far as that first objection we see, they'll say yes to me, but they go to the front. So a lot of times at the front, there's objections. So let's discuss that because there's 3 layers of objection management we have at the front. So they go to the staff and they say, well, he said come tomorrow, but I can't. So that's pretty common. They won't say it to me because I've got them, but then I call that the green mile, which is the point walking from the room I was in to the front desk because a lot of death occurs in the green mile. So they walk up and by then they're saying to themselves, I really can't come tomorrow. But what they're actually saying to the staff is this really that important? Is it as serious as Dr. Ben said it was? So if the staff waffles or wavers or lets the fence come toppling down even 1%, they've ruined everything I just did. So my staff knows hold up the fence when they test the fence. So that they'll say, I can't come tomorrow. And the staff says, well, you have to come tomorrow. It's really, the script is pretty simple. You have to come tomorrow. Dr. Ben wouldn't have recommended you come tomorrow if it wasn't that important. In fact, you have to come with your spouse tomorrow. It's critical you both see this so you can make the right decision about your health. So I'll tell you, if the staff holds up the fence and does it well with confidence, then 50% of the time is what I've seen. The person says, okay, we'll work this out. Now, there's still the other 50% where there's some rationale, some reason they give, work or soccer or something about the husband. And then the staff says, well, again, you have to be here tomorrow. Again, it's you, not we want you. It's nothing to do with me and my staff. You need to be here. So you. So you need to be here tomorrow. Again, Dr. Ben wouldn't have said that if it wasn't that critical and important to your health. So this is something we can write you a note. We can make a phone call. What do you need in terms of doctor's notes or doctor's follow-up so that we can get you here tomorrow? And that tends to get, again, another maybe 25% of the 50%. The other part, they're still tough. And so finally, well, that still wouldn't work. They reinforce it again. Still doesn't work. So they say, well, listen, I'm not a doctor. I can't change what's been prescribed for you. Let me go get the doctor. Then it's your job to come up and what I call circle back. So I go back to what they said would happen if this continued and remind them again how serious this has gotten. And usually I can get several people of that last 25% to commit. And there's still some that just in their minds or in reality, there's just an impossibility, whether it's their time or their spouse's time. But at least we've made it clear. We've done our job. They know they're blowing it. It wasn't us who blew it. We didn't waver with our commitment. And then for that other group, we're letting them know. So just make absolutely certain then you come the next day. So the very most, it's postponed a day or two, because this proximity is critical to not losing urgency and value to the condition. All very critical to high levels of conversion. Now, let's say with the spouse, we run into some things where there's just no way to get them back. So one, the patient's committed to the fact that they don't want to come in, they don't like chiropractic, whatever they're saying about it. We continue to let them know they need to be here. And what I say is, listen, it would be easier for me. I'd like to be just honest with patients. That's been my best policy. It makes me love and enjoy what I'm doing. I believe it comes across a lot clearer to the patient when you are just really candidly, brutally honest. And I'll just say, listen, it would be easier for me if your spouse didn't have to come either. But number one is they're going to want to see this. If this was going on in my wife's spine and with her health, if she has to ask me to come, I'm already sleeping on the couch. Like I want to see it, and she better see that I want to see it for our relationship. So that's one thing. And so the other thing though is that it just never works out if your husband and wife hasn't seen what's going on, doesn't understand what needs to be done here and at home, and to understand, the care plan, the costs. If people don't know, if the spouse doesn't know this, it just never works. So that's why we do it this way. So let's say that all still fails. I'll say, okay, listen, here's what we can do. Let's get your spouse on FaceTime so they could see the x-rays and the plan. So at least they're there for that part. Let's say, because they're out of town, or it's just a timing thing. Finally, the last trick is if again, you just didn't get there, we're about to lose the patient, it's falling apart. I'll say, okay, well, let's at least get you there, and we'll go over the x-rays with you. So I do the report, but I don't put a plan together. I'll go over the x-rays with them, do my report so that they're closed, quote unquote, and then say, now you can see. So what, and my thing, by the way, the scripting on it is, we say, so are you committed to the plan? Because we'll let them know, roughly what it takes to go from point A to point B with the x-rays, that you're going to go through what usually is a 60-day plan with care here and at home, or a 90-day plan with care here and at home. That's what it takes to get this corrected. Are you committed? And so I'm looking for them to say they're committed before we get into any money or anything like that. In fact, if they say, well, it depends what it costs, then I realize I got to circle back again because I didn't get credit card. Remember, we're looking for credit card as the result, which means they understand this is a desperate, timely, terminal issue we're dealing with here that they got to jump on. So if they go, what's it cost? I missed. I swung and missed, as did you, if that's what you get. I didn't get credit card. I didn't get what's the difference. Here's how I just need to do it. I didn't get that. So what I say to them is, well, listen, we'll get into the care plan later. What I need to know is, are you committed? And I tell them, look, we work for God and not for money. We're here to get people healthy and well and at their God-given potential. That's what we do. And so if you're not committed to it, then we wouldn't take your case anyways. We would wait later till you were more committed. So, I need that commitment. And if they're still like, well, costs are going to be a big issue. Well, let's go back to what you said. If it wasn't corrected, where are you going to be in a year? Dead. Well, so there it is. Are you committed? So, and so if they're still fighting with them, I'm like, listen, that's not what we do here. I love you. I want to see you well. But if now's not good timing for you, if it's not something that you're committed to now, that's okay. We'll always be here for you. These problems don't go away on their own. You can always come back. So, so I'm not fighting with them. I'm not getting a negative Yelp review out of it. I'm letting them off the hook, but letting them also know that we work with the committed, because and it's not because it's our way or the highway. It's because it's the only way it works. I'm not going to risk your health and your life even 1% with bad care. And the only way to get good care is for you to be committed. So, we're very clear on that. So let's say they say, no, I'm committed. We finally get them to the point where they say it right away, or after I've gone through that final read dissertation, I'm committed. Great. Well, now you can see, while your husband had to see what was going on here, or your wife had to see this and understand it, So what I'll do next is I'll put the care plan together for you, and let's get them in to at least go over the x-rays and the plan together. We won't go through the entire report again, but we'll do the x-rays, go over the plan together so the two of you can make the best decision possible for your health, which is the most important thing here is your health. And if again, there's some issue where they're out of town or timing or something, I'm like, great, let's get on Zoom or we could do FaceTime. But now you can see why your spouse needed to see this. And so that's the final trick. And usually that one will work by that point because you've now helped the patient really understand why everyone needed to see this, and also commit to credit card because they realize finally that their life is at risk and all the value chiropractic can bring to them now and in the future. So hopefully this helped you with your part 2, critical piece to this whole thing, as well as, how we proceed when there are objections. Really, other than very obscure situations, we should be able to close everyone. The goal is 10 out of 10. That is the goal. Sometimes there are difficult people and it becomes 9 out of 10, but it shouldn't be 4 or 5 out of 10. People are important. We pray God send us everyone who needs our help, which is everybody. And he sends special people in, and he's there for all 2 days and all 3 parts saying, did you do the part you needed to do to save the life of this person that I love? So hopefully you're committed to getting better to it. Let us know if you need any help. Bless you. And remember who you are.